Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is 9 a.m. and the live stream has commenced. You may begin your meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Good morning, council, town staff, residents. I see that we do, in fact, have quorum for this morning's meeting. I call it into session. And our first item is to have the national anthem. I ask all those, please stand if able. And today's rendition will be Mila Bulgar, a little lady from Welland.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I hope the young lady will forgive us for the interference. Next on the agenda is the reading of the land acknowledgement, and this morning, Councillor Nesnick has the honor.
Good morning. The town of Pelham is situated on treaty land steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hadiwendurrung, Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is protected within the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island live and work in Niagara. The town of Pelham stands in solidarity with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, acknowledging that our high standard of living is a result of the resources and lasting friendship of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you, Councillor. I now turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 4, being the adoption of the agenda. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the agenda for November 6, 2024, regular meeting of council be adopted as circulated. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, any comments from council? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Motion carries. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to item number 5, being disclosure of pecuniary interests.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any council member have a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 6.1.1. We are joined this morning by Carol Nagy of Hospice Niagara. Ms. Nagy, I would welcome you to the podium and remind you that you have 5 minutes to present.
Ms. Nagy, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you very much for having me to speak to you today. It's been, I think, the second time that I've been out to this council, so I will be brief this morning. I wanted to update you on what is happening with the Welland Hospice, which likely your residents are going to use, as well as the St. Catherine's Hospice that currently exists. We have now turned the corner, and our construction's well underway, and we're anticipating opening in August next year. So right now the campaign is looking at how we can furnish this home to take it from just a building into a home, much like the home that we have at the Stabler Center, but also your own homes. We were privileged this year to have Craig Bowman, who was a firefighter in Welland, be served through the hospice in in St. Catherine's. Craig and his family were so pleased with the care that they're allowing us to use his story as part of this campaign, so that we hopefully can raise community awareness about hospice care, about all the services we provide, but also for community help to help make this new hospice a home. We really are at the point of the campaign where we are looking for linens. We're looking at how we can afford the beds, the furniture, the microwave, everything that you would have in your own home that makes you feel comfortable, makes your life easier, is what we're hoping to accomplish at hospice. I don't think that we need to show any of the slides. We're good with this one. We also are asked, this is a large campaign gone out to all community members. We're at service clubs as well talking about this, because any amount that people can give, certainly from the town, is very helpful. We're looking to raise about $700,000 in order to make this hospice a home. So it's not a tall ask. I want to thank this council and this city for being very generous with your donations towards the capital campaign. It was $85,000, and next year your last payment of that, $17,000, will be received, and I can't thank you enough for getting us to this point in the campaign.
Okay, thank you for that presentation and for joining us this morning at council. Is there any questions from councilors want to ask of the presenter? Councilor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention that there's a lot of services. Reading through your reports here, I read through your annual report and your most recent, I believe it was called Your Impact Report. And you had an item in there that caught my eye, and it was a nurse call system that you have. And I guess that's for home care, people that choose to live at home and can't go to hospice care, because I think this is really a valuable thing, because aging is going to be different for all of us. And we're not all going to have the services of long-term care or anything available to us just simply because we can't afford it. But if you could describe that for me, and how this serves people that live in Pelham in their homes and have chosen to do that, because, you know, and I think that I'd appreciate knowing a little more about that.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you for that question. We have a number of services that help people from the time of diagnosis to stay in their home and live well. That's the focus of all of our services. How can we make sure that when somebody is living with progressive illness, that they are managing as well as they can? So are their caregivers. So we support caregivers through our programs, providing education and support to caregivers, because that is a long journey for people. We also support the person who's been diagnosed. We provide pain and symptom management through an expert team of specialists the new name is Ontario Health at Home. I was going to say OHA, that's the short form. So we provide nurse practitioners and a palliative care physician that go in and provide one-to-one support in people's homes, making sure that their pain is managed, their questions are answered, and making sure they have a plan of what comes next for them in this illness journey. We also have what you're describing as virtual care monitoring, where one of our very specialist nurse who's been working in palliative care for her entire career is on the phone, ready to help families answer their questions. Maybe they're transitioning from hospital home. That's a time when some things can go wrong and there's lots of questions. Our remote care monitoring nurse is there to help. We also have a lot of day programs for people who are living at home to take that person who has the illness and put them back in community. It's what we all do regularly, where we meet with our friends, but when you're living with that long-term illness, your life can become isolated. So we bring those people to programs, giving their caregivers a break for the day, and making sure that person still has that community, still feels like they're a vital part of the community. So lots and lots of different programs that we provide for people living at home. We're not just a hospice building. We are in homes. We provide bereavement support for children as young as 5 all the way through adults in a number of different ways. Music therapy is one of our programs. I just heard the other day of a 9-year-old who wasn't able to articulate how he was feeling about his father's death for months and months and months, and then finally through our program was able to start to talk about it. And we use one of these fancy computer games that projects onto the ceiling or onto the floor, and he really got hooked and was able to say, you know, I can start talking about my dad while he's playing the game. So a lot of different kinds of programs that we offer, and they are all at no cost to people, because we really believe this care needs to be available for everyone in our community.
Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure that this is one of the biggest mega trend of our time is aging, and aging is being reframed and redefined all the time. So I'm grateful that we have hospice to take care of this, because my own experience with it has been excellent. It wasn't a family member, it was a neighbor, and we gathered together as a group to support the neighbor. And hospice was there when we needed it, of course, for the very, very important medical things that happen. So I'm grateful for you to hospice for advancing human-centered policies and practices that are to the benefit of everybody in the community, because we're all basically, as you get a little older, you're one accident, one illness away from, having to change your lifestyle. And I want to live at home as long as I possibly can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions to the presenter? Not seeing any. Again, I thank you for appearing before this council today and bringing your message. And yes, this council, as you noted, did indeed put forward the $85,000, and we were very extremely happy to do that, realizing just how important your organization is to the community. And we will be considering your request at budget time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that council receive the from Carol Nagy, Executive Director of Hospice Niagara, regarding the Make Hospice a Home campaign for information. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments from any councillors on the presentation? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Motion passes. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 6.1.2, and we are joined this morning by Kevin Coyle and Tom Hounsel of the Fonthill District Kinsmen, and you are both invited to the podium. Please be reminded that you have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Gentlemen, welcome this morning to council meetings, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. We're very happy to be here.
If you could just turn on the microphone before you proceed, that'd be great. Thank you. Perfect.
I think it's on now. So yes, we're very happy to be here. I am Tom Hounsel. I'm the president of the Kinsmen, although I've only been a member for a year. I think this is actually some kind of hazing ritual they do. And I want to start by apologizing for the brief we submitted. I don't think I understood how public this was going to be when it was submitted. We're a bunch of curmudgeonly old men that really are not very politically savvy. And I also want to start by giving great thanks to the town, and particularly its staff, for all the help that we've given. We had the craft show recently, and it was a fantastic success. And I want to make it very clear that nothing that we're here to say to you today is in any way supposed to be reflected on the staff. Vicky in particular has had to deal with the most curmudgeonly of us, I know, and we're working on it, and we appreciate all your support. But I'm going to walk you through what it's been like for my time in 1 year in the Kinsmen. I live on Memorial Drive, and I saw them meeting there at the old town hall, and decided to check it out. And shortly thereafter, I was told, well, we're not going to be meeting here next year because we're getting pushed out of this space. And so that's okay. So all right. And then one of the early tasks that I ended up helping with was getting stuff out of the MCC, because there's some storage that we had there, some signage and whatnot for shows. And we were told, no, you can't have it there. So that got pushed out. And we got this home show that we're working on. And basically there are hundreds of hours, and I'm not exaggerating when I say hundreds of volunteer hours went into preparing for that home show. And then it didn't happen because of an equipment failure. And it's like, wow, that's pretty shocking. That's a lot of hours down the drain. It's really not hard, not easy to get people to join us, and to have all that time just turned into wasted time was really a bitter pill to swallow. So what we're here for today, it says compensation, but that's, in our outline, we've suggested a few ways where that might be possible. I know that some of those might not be practical. We're really here to make sure, the relationship between any two parties is part business and part casual and just getting along, and we're just wanting to make sure the dial's adjusted the right way, because as I can reflect on my own experience, and I'm sure this reflects the general attitude of the members, is, wow, we're just kind of surprised that all the things we've been pushed on. We've been pushed on dates as well. We traditionally held, not always, but traditionally held our show the first week of April, and that's been pushed for very good business reasons on your part, I'm sure, to the second week of April. But it pushes us into competition directly with another show, which is bad for business. And so just overall, we just want to make sure that the dial between business and relationship is set right, and that you fully appreciate what it costs the members, what it costs us in terms of lost revenue for things like hospice, where our monies generally go. But most of all, I think that when it was all said and done, I remember being at a meeting and saying, well, wow, that's like a really terrific loss. Like, what is the town going to do about this? And I'm sure there's more to this story, but what I heard back was they said we should contact our insurer. And so, a visit to say, hey, we're sorry, and how can we help would have been really helpful to encourage members to come back and do this again next year. And we do look forward to any kind of compensation that you think might be possible. Our doors are open, our ears are open, and we are very sorry to be having to make this sort of presentation. And we look forward to a continued great relationship in the future, and I invite any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Before I go to council, I just want to assure you that I believe every member on this council realizes the great work that the Kinsman has done for the town and for the surrounding areas. You raised a lot, there's an adjective I would have put in there, but let's just say a lot of money over the years. And we have had, and the town and the Kinsman have had a great working relationship. Vicky, of course, being our main ambassador, she reaches out to all the service clubs and any wrinkles that develop in the relationship. She's the one that works through them. So again, thank you for the presentation. Before I go to council, I would like to go to Ms. Van Ravensway. And how have we cooperated in the past on the farm show, Ms. Van Ravensway?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, over the years, you're part of us, so we cooperate as much as possible. I know that both of you gentlemen are new to the club, so bear with me. Actually, when you say that it was normal to have it the first week, it actually wasn't normal to have it the first week of April. What we had was the first year that prior to moving to the MCC, it was always the second or third week at Hay Street. And then the first year, which was 2019, you did have the home show the first week, and it worked out. Although council at the time did have a resolution stating that if, in fact, the playoffs went into April, that you would need to use the Doulaban Arena instead of the exhibitor. And lo and behold, it was right up till we were able to take out the exhibitor and you're able to use the exhibitor arena. After that, of course, we all experienced COVID, and then the next time was 2022, which was April 8th and 9th, which is the second week. And that works out really well for us because hockey goes until at least, we're dedicated to March 31st, and it takes us a good 8 to 10 days to take out the ice. And then 2023, it was actually April 13th to 16th, which was the third week. This past year, it was agreed that you would have the first week, which was April 4th to 7th. And again, OMHA playoffs went to the Saturday prior to your home show, which was started to be on the Thursday, and which was also Easter weekend, which was lovely. So staff worked night and day trying to get that ice out and ready for you. and lo and behold, we had to cancel the show. So unfortunately, the first week just doesn't work for us. Also, last fall, council signed a new agreement with the junior hockey team, in which in their agreement, it states that if their playoffs go into April, that they would still have access to the exhibitor arena. And then at that point, we would have to decide to take out dual ban if that's the wish of council. So I know it's difficult, and I would just encourage you, the home show is a whole different deal. It's a community show, and I believe the community would support your show.
Okay. Am I to respond to that?
Yeah,
Sure.
please.
I don't disagree with anything Vicky said, of course. And again, it's just a matter of perception. When I look at these 5 dates that are shown in our document, I can see that most of them are the first week in April. So it might not be, pushing might not be the word that you would use for it, but as a member of the club, it feels like, well, we're getting pushed into later in April. And it's just part of a general feeling based on a bunch of decisions that are all probably logical and make a lot of sense individually, but collectively, I just want you to know what this is adding up to.
Okay, thank you for that. Again, as Ms. Van Ravensway has stated, we have to look after our long-term yearly contracts, and that contract in this particular case belongs to the junior B team.
Yep.
And we have to, and that's in the contract, so that's the way we have to handle that. Anyway, I'll open the, Ms. Van Ravensway, the rental agreements for the home show, we have picked them up with grants in the last couple of years, have we?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So annually, the Kinsman, and you've done it again, you applied for waived fees for this year it's the craft show and the home show. As per our municipal policy, if the money is available, we would allow up to $4,000 a year per organization. And we have, 26,000 to divvy up between multiple groups. And annually, what you normally would get is your craft show and the use of the Old Pelham Town Hall. And just a little correction, we'd love to have you at the Old Pelham Town Hall. I'm not quite sure why you left, but it's still available Tuesday nights.
The reason we left, can I
Yeah.
respond? It's the meals. We have to send those out, and one of our members was orchestrating that, but she's not with us anymore, so it was kind of the meals. So that's why we wanted a home base, so it wasn't
Well, it's
back
actually,
and forth.
it's not so much about the rental of the Tuesday nights as it is there's a space in there that we've been using as an office. I don't know where the agreement is that has allowed us to use that as an office, but we've been told to get our stuff out of there. And we actually just removed a refrigerator from there the other day, and the rest of the stuff will be gone by the end of the year. Because as I understand it, that's what we've been told to do.
Okay, thank you. If it is just a food matter, Vicky does make a heck of an omelet.
Yeah.
I just want that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not just the food, it's mostly about the space.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn to the CAO for any comments that this unfortunate incident, meaning the transformer fire, ended up having an effect on the town for sure. Mr. CAO?
I would start by saying that the town's relationship with the group you represent is a key one in providing service to the community, and I would agree that it's at a low point as a result of a couple of files. And lastly, I'd submit that we could both stand some looking in the mirror, and I think we'd like to find a positive way forward. So I think that's the important thing here. It should be said that the corporation of the town of Pelham is out $339,000 because of a fire that And if you're looking for who the primary victim is, it's the municipal corporation on behalf of the entire community. We've quantified the loss at $339,000. 11,000 of that is lost revenue to us, facilities we weren't able to rent to groups that we would have but for the fire, and the rest is property / direct costs of remediation and et cetera, labor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So 339,000. And we're still interacting with our insurance company, and we expect ultimate resolution of that, but that hasn't happened yet. So the town is out $339,000. And that week, as with every other type of business, you have ebbs and flows. And that week, you have to understand how much work and effort. It sounds innocuous and easy to remove ice. It's actually an extremely laborious process. You're open 17 hours a day, and they go 17 hours at it. You have to slowly bring the temperature up. All the ice turns to water. The water has to go somewhere. You have to, I don't personally know how to do it all, but ultimately you change the decals or not under the ice, and you build it back up. And so it's like a major undertaking that we try to do one time a year. And we were full court pressing on that to get that ready. That's where we were when a fire happened. So it's problematic and difficult for the corporation to respond in the way you'd like it to, since our losses are, in relative terms and with respect, staggering. It's $339,000 at this point in time, and we haven't been made whole on any of that. So just so you understand that, that's revenue foregone, and that $11,000 represents a lot of community rentals and a lot of events we didn't want to cancel, and a lot of missed opportunities for the community to come together and celebrate in all sorts of, in sport, in cultural things, and just a whole bunch of stuff we lost. Your show was the most high profile and the most significant, and would have had the most number of people of the events that we lost, but it was one amongst dozens and dozens that went down, unfortunately, in that period. So beyond that, like the rest of the staff, I sit here and wait for any direction, but it's $339,000. We've not been made whole, and we were doing everything we humanly could. You understand that if we do, we have a fundamental problem, and the art of running a good community center is serving the entire community. I don't know. I think it would be extremely difficult, even if we could, to tell the hockey teams that are home here all year round that, yeah, you can't have the playoff games here. So that's a challenge for us. But even moving forward, understand that it takes a week to get that ice ready. So it's actually if you move forward 1 week, you're actually moving forward 2 weeks from our perspective. It isn't, we can't turn it around overnight. Literally, it's a lot of days, a very extremely long days, far longer than a normal business day to get the ice up and down. So understanding there's some operations and practicalities with that part of the request. Then there's conflict amongst community groups. And then lastly, with respect to the MCC operations, we have a significant financial problem this year of major magnitude. And that's not been resolved yet either. So that's my perspective, for whatever that's worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. I will now, any,
Respond to that?
Go ahead, sir.
Just to quantify, I appreciate the $339,000. I was a vendor in that show when I'm a strong supporter of it. My business alone lost $80,000 from the show. So to quantify the total loss, it's closer to $1 million for all the vendors, the kinsmen, and everything. So we share that grief with you. What we're asking for in the future is maybe to work together a little more closely, help us out this year. I'm the one who's chairing the show, myself and Jamie, and we want to make this great. We have to go head to head with the big show, the Jenkins show in St. Catharines. I went in that show last year. It's not as good as our show. No. I paid $1,600 for it, and I had probably 1/6 the results from the Pelham show. So it stung. And we want to make sure, because I have to go head-to-head with that show this year. So we want to hopefully get some help from the town somehow with something extra. So we have to come up with something that's going to make our show more attractive, and we got to do it quickly before all the booths are gone. So if there's other areas that we could possibly utilize, we can enhance the show somehow. I think that's what's going to solidify us as being the primary show. The Jenkins show is not, it's just a money grab. They have no exclusivity in their vendors. They'll just let, 5 painters go in. But our show is a special show. It has a different personality to it. And I recognize that instantly. I've been in the show, I think it's it would have been 4 years. But it stung. So I appreciate what you're saying. Ours is like threefold.
And
Okay.
uninsured, basically, because we suppose we could have bought insurance for our own direct losses, but it would have been very difficult to try to guesstimate what the losses of the vendors themselves were and try to insure that in any way. So there's a difference in that respect as well. And also, it was not a fault on our part, right?
Yes.
Right, yeah.
And just to be clear, it wasn't a fault on our part.
Well, I know it was an accident, but it was an accident on property you own,
Yes.
right?
Actually, we didn't own that.
Okay.
Oh, no, we did own that one. We don't own it now. Ontario Hydro owns it now.
Okay.
So the next time.
Next
God
time it'll be your vendor.
Next time, heaven forbid, it'll probably be fixed in 3 or 4 days because we won't have to go through insurance companies. Anyway, we digress.
Yeah.
Council, any members of council have any questions to the presenters? Councilor Nesnick.
Hello, yes, thank you, and I do agree, your show is above and beyond terrific. I look forward to going to it every year, and I know it's always a very well-attended event, and I have also been to the other one that you mentioned, and you're right, bar none, yours is by far much, much better. I guess my question is actually over to Ms. Van Ravensway with regards to would the rental costs have been to the Kinsmen for that event? If you have that off the top of your head, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the rental cost, I believe, is around $3,000, more or less, with $2,500, $2,700 with tax.
For the weekend?
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, when we look at, your asks, it looks as though that might be the one that we could certainly contemplate helping you with. So I'm comfortable with working towards coming up with a resolution towards the rental costs for you folks. As far as the date, it does kind of make it sense that you don't want to be there waiting on bated breath. Is the ice going to be out? Is the floor going to be dry for you? So moving to that second week makes a little more sense, even though you're going to be going up against there. I think you have a good enough reputation that people would, if they're going to one, they're going to come to both, is my thought. But anyways, and as far as the cover the cost to compensate, I'm not sure whether the town has any feasibility of doing that. But certainly I'd like to focus on the rental costs for your group as well. Okay, so those would be my thoughts. We can work on that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments at this time? If not, I will ask Councilor Nesnick to put forward a resolution. I don't see any other comments. Councilor, you want to put forward?
Yep, so I would like to put forth a resolution that Town of Pelham waive future rental costs to the Kinsman Corporation for the use of the MCC during the April home show.
And is there a time
For a
frame on
time
that?
frame, so they've asked for 5 years. So for 5 years.
Okay. If I probably the first, I'll let Councillor Wink because I think we're on the same wave. Go ahead, Councillor.
So, just to be clear, Kinsman's getting a grant to cover off those costs for already. So it's not, this wouldn't be in addition to. So they're getting $4,000 a year for this show and the craft show. So why are we putting through a motion to grant them free access to it when we're giving them money for free access to this show?
Go ahead, Councilor.
Well, my understanding was the $4,000 was used for the craft show and the rental of the Old Town Hall, not for the home show one. But
We'll go
maybe we
back
can
to,
clarify that.
Ms. Van Riemenzo.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, in the past, it went up to 4,000 just by the cost of the craft show and the rental of the home show, or the Old Pelham Town Hall. Although, at this time, they're not renting the Old Pelham Town Hall any longer, so the waived fees for that would not be included. So there, you could include the home show and the craft show.
But again, to the councilor's point, isn't that already covered with the $4,000 grant?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the $4,000 grant, I believe with the two shows, it would be somewhere around $5,000 for the two shows. So the policy reads that we would support up to a $4,000 figure.
Councilor, can I go to the CEO, Councilor? Sure. Okay, CEO, please.
I think rather than fretting over the exact number, I also point out that our fees and services bylaw is going to come to you in a month or less. And although I don't 100% know, I think we are going to be looking to charge more next year and years going forward. So rather than fretting over the exact dollar amount, I think possibly a fair saw-off, if for council's consideration, would be one, to simply word a motion so that so that the Kinsmen pay no money between those two shows. There's already a $4,000 credit we're prepared to entirely apply, and whatever the overage is. But I might suggest you also limit that to 2 years, which is the balance of your term and your mandate, and maybe not make the decision for a future council. So I think that could recognize the fact that certainly the Kinsmen are blameless, and I think victim is a fair descriptor. Having done nothing wrong, there's a financial loss. It's not different for the town, but they're an excellent community partner, and we'd like to get things back on track. So I think there's a way to not take any money from the Kinsmen Group in 2025 and 2026. And if that's sought in future years, so be it. But I think that would be a later addition of the Kinsmen 2 years from now, and the same or a different council, as time will tell here. So that might be a reasonable saw-off, where we don't have to fret about the exact dollars. It'll be something in the ballpark of 1,000 to 3,000. One would assume.
Thank you. So let's turn to the clerk, as usually she's done her magic. Can you read us the resolution?
I believe so. That the town of Pelham waive future rental fees to the Kinsmen for the use of the MCC during the April home show and for the use of the Old Pelham Town Hall for the craft show for the next 2 years.
Okay. Councilor Nesnick, are you happy with that? Oh,
Well, I'm seeing,
Yes, let's go back to Ms. Van Riemenzo.
Both events are held at the MCC.
Oh, they're both, okay.
Back to you, Ms. Nesnick.
yeah, the Old Town Hall might be a little small for your home show. Yes, I'm comfortable with that.
And then I'd be looking for a seconder on that motion.
Is there a seconder? Councilor Wink will second.
Okay, thank you to Mr. Mayor for discussion.
Okay, so on this resolution, any further discussion? I see none. I will call the vote. In favor of the resolution, all those in favor? I see none opposed. Resolution passes. Thank you. Gentlemen, again, thank you for appearing before council this morning. And like I say, we've had a great relationship in the past, and perhaps there are some wrinkles that both sides have got to work at to going ahead. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a clarifying question about this? Because I'm sure it'll come up at our next meeting. So that's basically just over and above we have to use the permissive grants first, and then the rest is going to be, that's what the nature of this is? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Is this a credit, basically?
The way I interpret that direction from council is that we will not seek compensation from you for those 2 shows in the spring and the fall
Yeah,
for the next 2 years.
right. The reason for my question was, if the town hall is still going to be available, if we think of an event that we could run there, would we be able to apply our permissive grant to the old town hall and then still get our shows for free for the next 2 years, or start with the grant first?
I once took a negotiation class with, and we were taught how to address when someone gives someone an inch and they take a mile. I think the council makes $26,000 available to the entire community. Your group's allotment or share of that is $4,000, and every year we make no bones about making sure you get 100% of that, and we're very happy to do that. But there are an inordinate amount of excellent community groups in the town of Pelham, and our volunteer sector is extremely vibrant, and it's something to love and cherish about this community. But all of those other groups are meritorious as well. So I think bird in the hand might be the right way to go.
I think our concern there is, as I know Kevin told me very well, we're afraid he's going to bring the circus in.
Thanks very much for your time.
Okay, again, thanks for the presentation, gentlemen. Thank you. To the clerk.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we move on, I also have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckert, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive the presentation from Kevin Coyle and Tom Hounsel of the Kinsmen regarding compensation requests for the 2024 home show for information. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. Again, thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Mayor, that brings us to item 6.2, presentation, a presentation regarding natural asset management project results. And we are joined this morning by Samantha Witkowski, Environmental Coordinator for the Town of Pelham.
Thank you. Ladies, you have the floor.
Good morning. So I know Sam was called to the microphone, but I'm going to jump ahead of her for a minute to introduce her. So I'm Shannon LaRock, the manager of planning for the town of Pelham, and this is Samantha Witkowski. She's our new environmental coordinator who we share with the town of Lincoln. And Sam and I are going to provide this presentation this morning, mostly Sam, to highlight an exciting project that has recently been completed by the town. It's the Pelham Greenbelt Natural Asset Management Project. There we go. As many are aware, Council made environmental and climate adaptation a priority in the 2023 to 2027 strategic plan. And in late 2022, town staff identified natural asset management as a valuable tool that would help us to achieve that priority. As a result, we applied for a grant through the Greenbelt Foundation, and we were successfully awarded that grant. Work on the project began in 2023 with the help of our consultant, the Natural Asset Initiative. And this project is a key step toward identifying, measuring, and valuing Pelham's natural assets like forests, wetlands, woodlands, green spaces that provide essential services to our community. And at this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Sam, who will walk us through the project's goals, objectives, key findings, and recommendations for next steps that came out of this project.
Thank you, Shannon, for that introduction and the background to the project. Before getting into the details about this project, I would like to start with an overview of natural asset management. Of course, Council is familiar with typical asset management for a municipality, which involves tracking and maintaining traditional infrastructure like roads, bridges, and buildings. Natural asset management takes a similar approach or way of thinking, but applies it to ecosystems like forests, wetlands, and waterways. And while this is a relatively new way of thinking, as of 2024, municipalities are required to include natural asset in their asset management programs under a new Ontario regulation. So this project has helped us in meeting that requirement. And in general, managing these natural assets is important because they provide critical services to our community, such as stormwater management, air quality improvement, flood control, among a host of other benefits, in a sustainable and cost-effective way as well, in comparison typically to built infrastructure. So to that end, the aim of this project was to identify, measure, value, and ultimately provide recommendations for how we can preserve and manage Pelham's natural assets and therefore maintain the essential services that they provide. There were 3 objectives associated with this goal. First, understand the current roles that natural assets play in providing stormwater management and flood mitigation services to the community. 2, quantify the value of natural assets in terms of the services they provide. And 3, develop strategies for long-term management based on this understanding. The project focused on 2 related scales. The first broader scope was the Town of Pelham municipal boundary. This allowed us to hone in on where and how we can undertake natural asset management on a jurisdictional scale. And then the modeling component of the project focused on the Upper 12 Mile Creek sub-watershed, which intersects with the Ontario Greenbelt and Town of Pelham's municipal boundaries, as seen in this figure here. Importantly, many of these natural assets are not exclusively owned or sometimes even entirely located within the Town of Pelham, yet they still provide services to our community, and so this project sought to capture that. Moving on to some of our key findings from this project. It began with developing an inventory to tell us what natural assets are present and their condition as well. The inventory component defined a total of 4,428 individual assets across just over 10 hectares of land. And in assessing their condition, overall, nearly 40% of these assets were in very good or good condition, particularly our forests and wetlands. Meadows, aquatic, and hedgerow assets had rankings across the full range of scores from poor to very good. A great outcome to highlight from this stage of the project is the online interactive dashboard, which is freely available for public use. This dashboard shows the full inventory of natural assets, including their condition assessment. So it's a great visual tool that can be used to explore these natural assets and their corresponding data in a little bit more detail. Then, in order to develop a deeper understanding of the role that natural assets play in managing stormwater, the project also conducted an assessment of stormwater management services provided by these assets. Our biggest key takeaways from this assessment were that our natural assets were shown to significantly contribute to preventing flooding and erosion in our community. The value of stormwater services is roughly $6 million based on the capital cost to replace similar services with built infrastructure. And that in comparison to the performance of our natural systems, built infrastructure had mixed effectiveness in reducing flooding. And it should also be noted that these types of solutions also typically come with higher construction and maintenance costs in the long term. We also took it a step further, recognizing that natural assets can also provide other additional benefits to our community, such as carbon sequestration, fresh water supply, supporting biodiversity, and more. So taken together, the combined value of these benefits was estimated to range from $22 million to just about $25 million per year. Through the completion of this project, we now have a better understanding of how much value these natural assets provide and why it is important to proactively manage and protect these resources. They're not only vital to the delivery of services in our community, but if managed effectively, they also provide additional services as time goes on. But natural asset management is an ongoing and iterative process. So to that end, this project provided 11 recommended next steps for Pelham to undertake to better protect and proactively manage our natural assets. Each of the 11 recommendations is detailed in our full technical report, but we have grouped them into 3 overarching takeaways here. A, protect existing natural spaces. B, make evidence-based decisions to manage natural assets. And C, build awareness and partnerships. So to end this presentation, I'll briefly discuss each of these. You'll see here that I have jumped to C, build awareness and partnerships. And that is because this has been our priority area of focus over the last few months and for the remainder of 2024. We are continuing to build not only staff and council awareness, but also awareness in our greater community as well. We have hosted a stakeholder workshop in June where we invited many community groups, Indigenous groups, members of staff and council to attend and ask questions or provide feedback on the project results. This current presentation was another important step in building that awareness and support for the project internally. And we are also working with our funders and collaborators, the Greenbelt Foundation and the Natural Assets Initiative Group, to develop other communications materials surrounding this project as well. Through these ongoing activities and discussions, we are also cognizant of the different key players that may need to be involved in our natural asset management strategies, and we hope to continue building those partnerships to advance our shared goals. Moving back to our first key takeaway, protecting our existing natural spaces so that we can continue to sustain Pelham's environmental and community benefits. This project has identified a number of different actions that will contribute to this goal. One important aspect will be the review and update of policies and bylaws to ensure that our efforts are prioritized and integrated into town operations. For example, Town of Pelham is in the process of updating its official plan, and in doing so is looking at updating policies to support protection and enhancement of natural assets in the town. Additionally, identifying priority areas of naturalization so that we can enhance green spaces and continue to support biodiversity and ecosystem health. This might involve assessing underutilized or degraded lands that could benefit from restoration, with focus on locations that would enhance biodiversity and connectivity. As well as securing and protecting priority forests and wetlands by designating key areas for conservation, as well as collaborating with organizations like conservation authorities so that we can continue to preserve these assets. And then finally, using evidence-based decision-making to manage natural assets. By basing our approach on data and structured strategies, we can ensure that our resources are managed more effectively and sustainability. So this might involve proactively monitoring and managing erosion sites to prevent any further damage in high-risk areas. Formalizing invasive species management, again, to protect biodiversity and act swiftly against invasive threats. Strengthening our assessment of natural assets and related services to help us better understand the value and function of these assets over time. And even developing a costed lifecycle management strategy, which takes into account maintenance, budgeting, service delivery to ensure that to ensure sustainable management of these assets. This is a big undertaking. There is a lot of work ahead, and it is complex. But these project results have provided us with a great start in not only understanding the current state of our natural assets, but starting to build a roadmap for how we can tackle management of these assets as well. In the remainder of 2024, staff will be working towards developing a plan for the implementation of the recommendations coming out of this project, and we look forward to providing council with updates on the implementation in 2025. Thank you very much for your time today and listening to this presentation.
Thank you for appearing before council with this report. And as you were giving it, it struck me as to how much time this council spends talking about the environment, and that's a good thing. I can remember my first term on council back in 2014 to 2017. I don't think the environment came up once in those 3 years. Just the way the time is, everything's evolving, and this is great. This report is obviously a first step, and yeah, it's just great that that this council, along with the encouragement of the residents, are realizing just how positive and how valuable the natural heritage systems are. We hear this all the time at the region also, protecting the assets, because you protect them, they look after you. And great, thank you for that report. I open up to council. Any questions or comments? Councilor Wink.
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Sam. As you were going through the presentation, something came to mind, and the town owns only a finite amount of the properties within the town of Pelham, how much of these areas are covered by, that are privately owned? And I'm zeroing in, and Mike, you'll like this. We've got a lot of forests that are on private land, and we've got no policies in place that a private landowner can just go in and cut down their entire forest. Are we looking at policies going forward to protect the forests and the wetlands, and how are we doing that?
Oh, I'm sorry, was the question to the presenter or to the?
Yes.
Oh, to the presenter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that question. That isn't a recommendation coming out of the report, is going through our policies and looking at where we can enhance protection of these types of areas. As far as I am aware, those conversations have not occurred yet. However, I can highlight, at least through my role at the town of Lincoln, that is something that is on my work plan for 2025, and looking at particularly private tree protection policies and bylaws there. And so there may be some overlap if opportunities arise here to explore that.
Thank you. I think the CAO wanted to chime in on that.
To the CAO, please.
Well, I think that might be an excellent area to ask for a follow-up staff report. I can tell you, in our two-tier system, we rely on the upper tier. It does have I think they call it a woodlands protection bylaw, but if I've got the terminology wrong, someone forgive me. And so they do protect large tracts of land, and I don't remember what the trigger point is for them. I want to say 5 hectares, but again, well, someone does know. The magic of technology. So there are protections in Niagara in place. And we could elect to legislate on that directly, but relative to the rural lands of the town, we tend to rely on the upper tier for enforcement on forestry. And we do, of course, in fact, about 2 years ago, we addressed some of our urban tree canopy through direct bylaw passage. But I think this would be a great thing for council to hear more of, and to sort of do a gap analysis and our capacity analysis. I think, well, self-evidently, there are members of the community who are interested in this topic and have come out to hear this presentation in particular. So well done thus far, Sam. But I think that'd be an excellent thing if we could either take direction, or you could, by motion, give us some specifics. But we'd be happy to write a holistic report on forestry and where we are and what we might do further, if that were of interest.
Councillor?
Yeah, so I don't think we need to go to a formal motion, but a staff report on this would be much appreciated. I'm not sure what other councilors think about that report, or.
Any councillor object to, and I don't see any objections to what you're suggesting, so I think that would be a good direction for staff. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Wiskowski. What I wanted to ask you about was, we want to create a living landscape in Pelham. And I see that on the one page, I was a little surprised to see that hedgerows are included on the list here. And I was even more surprised to see that that's the area of that is of hedgerows in Pelham is 106 hectares. And we also have another 25 kilometers of trails. Now, just thinking about that, I'm looking at some kind of a high impact, low cost thing, because when you build a hedgerow, it's not like planting trees that are going to take many, many years to mature. We've constructed the gardens up in the Centennial Park there, the pollinator gardens, they're almost like the hedgerows. They were planted by the kids during COVID. I mean, they're flourishing. So a hedgerow, I did some study in this, and we've done it on our farm. We allowed hedgerows along the road so we didn't have to plow snow. So no need for plowing snow. And then the studies that I've read about it, when we did this, we found out that for 100 meters of hedgerow, there are 2,000 species of plants and animals and amphibians right in there, living right there. And not only that, they were corridors for connectivity for pollinators and birds and that type of thing. And these, the wetlands and the tree in our trees, they can't exist as islands on themselves. They should be connected. So I'm just hoping that we could do something like that, because I think that's a low cost, high impact, fast thing to do. And I can predict that. As they do in Trout Unlimited, I can predict that the landowners would be very cooperative in something like that to thicken up and mature the hedgerows. So I'll leave that, Mr. Mayor, as a comment and a question.
Okay, thanks, Council. Any comment on hedgerows in Pelham, Samantha?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Olson, for those comments. And just a quick response, I thank you for providing kind of highlighting the low resource aspect towards something like this. That's something that in our implementation plan that we are in discussions of having in the remainder of 2024 is something that we're looking to identify are those low resource opportunities where we can make a big impact and progress on the recommendations in this report. So thank you for highlighting that, and that will definitely be on my list of considerations.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Mayor, and I think scenario number 3 that was of the scenarios, it dealt with the interruption of hydrological processes in the town, and that included the importance of low impact development features. Could you describe that for me a little bit, please?
In scenario 3, we looked at what the replacement of natural assets would be with the built infrastructure strategy. So we looked at stormwater management ponds as well as low impact development bioretention cells. In that scenario, we found that stormwater management ponds were not necessarily effective in reducing flow rate and therefore flooding. The bioretention cells were more successful and able to replicate the scenario results of our existing conditions, our existing natural assets. However, they were noted as being more costly for maintenance, as well as not having or having end of use life cycle in comparison to our natural assets. And so while they do work and are effective in controlling flooding and erosion, those costing implications are still a big consideration for the town.
Does that mean that the low impact development features are more efficient than in the stormwater ponds?
In this scenario, the modeling that we did, yes, that was considered more effective than the stormwater ponds.
So, and finally, Mr. Mayor, my final question is, we've just completed the rehabilitation of the Timber Creek Stormwater Management Pond, and we have some experience now, and I think the experience has been a good one and substantially done. I think the cost on that will fall within your cost estimates from within the budget here. Now, when you laid out the budget, is that an attempt to arrive at an annual budget or a 10-year budget, or what was that for I think it's 197 million or something like that? 900,000. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't want you to have a heart attack there. So, but it was some number like that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not as familiar with the budgeting process of the project. I would ask maybe if Ms. LaRoque has some thoughts on that to be able to answer.
Shannon?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There were some numbers included in the final report, and they were making assumptions that we were going full in every year in terms of, like, let's throw all of this money at making our assets as incredible as we would love them to be. But there are other options, and that's the kind of thing that we're going to be looking at is is there a way to go about this so that it's more manageable cost-wise? Do we target assets that are perhaps in the worst condition first? Or a certain percentage of assets every year to maintain and do some work on. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to be talking about over the next little while while we're looking at implementation. And then once we have some numbers and some better ideas on what would work operationally as well, then we'll bring that forward to you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I was just happy that we had numbers there to look at and start to look at and see kind of get an idea of the scale of this project and how we can get it finished. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. Any other comments, questions? Councilor Kerr.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciated seeing it. What intrigued me was that 80% of the area was either forest or wetland, which is a phenomenal number when you start to look at it. Wearing my agriculture person hat, impact on agricultural production is huge. And protecting naturalized areas can have a double-edged sword in that for a number of specialty crop producers especially, sometimes these are reservoirs for serious, not invasive pests, but indigenous pests, ones that have been here forever. They're local to us and have been for a long time. And it's something that I hope is part of it, that agriculture during all the discussions relative to this are considered. Some of us are aware of issues with excess water, even now, not in a flood instance, that is impacting on agricultural producers as a result of development, and it has them seriously concerned about future development as well as some of the things that are being looked at. So I appreciate your bringing this forward. It's nice to see the collective, I guess, of the group is not to look in isolation of naturalization, but taking consideration what commercial entities also exist that have to cohabit with this and remain viable in the long run as well. So I appreciate you bringing that forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments, questions? Not seeing any. If I may just expand a little bit on this presentation, this council, this town, and the staff of the town of Pelham, we can all be very proud of a project that we just celebrated the completion of on Tuesday, the erosion project that took place on our easterly border, included getting four levels of government to work on a problem. And I'll tell you the fact that we found the problem, we identified the problem, went out and got a solution, and then came together and got it. It seems like something simple, but for us to get four levels of government and get that done in the length of time we did, it's a feather in this council's cap, and the region, NPCA, and the Department of Oceans and Fisheries all came together and solved what was really a serious erosion problem over by Pelham Cares. And I encourage anyone on this council, any resident, to go over to Pelham Cares. I'm sure you can. They wouldn't mind if you parked in their parking lot and walked around back. And it's what has been accomplished. What used to be a 4-foot deep crease in that waterway is now a controlled flow of stone ponds, and the whole thing looks incredible. Samantha, have you had time to take a look at that project?
I haven't, but I can see that there would be many connections to this, and as well as in the corporate climate adaptation plan, and so I look forward to learning more about that project and seeing where those synergies are.
You get Jason to give you a drive over there, and it is indeed it's excellent. That's all I can say. And yeah, it's a feather in this council for doing that, being concerned about the problem that was there and taking action to get it done. Anyway, again, one last time, any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. Again, thank you for the report. And I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion put forth by the Deputy Mayor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive the Natural Asset Management Project Results presentation from Samantha Witkowski, Environmental Coordinator for the Town of Pelham, for information to Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Last call. Any comments? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 7, being the adoption of council minutes. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wink. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. C-17-2024, regular meeting of council, October 16th, 2024. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any errors or omissions.
Thank you. After viewing the minutes, any comments from any councillor? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 8. If there are now any items to which council would like to lift from the consent agenda, now would be the time to do so.
Okay, thank you. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any councillor wishes to pull? And I'll see Councillor Olson.
Item 9.4.1, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other item that a councillor would like to pull? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to the consent agenda. If there are any members of council that wish to speak on a topic, now would be the time. Mr. Mayor, I can call them by category if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay, we will begin with the committee recommendation sheets and minutes.
Any item there that any member of council would like to comment on? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Okay, staff reports.
Staff reports. Not seeing any.
Thank you. Information correspondence, save and accept 9.4.1, which will be discussed following.
Yes. Again, I don't see any. Oh,
Yes.
but we have Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make a comment with regards to Niagara Regional Waste. The report says a 0.9% increase. I would have presented a council report on Niagara Regional 12, but I need the region's approval to issue my minutes. The clerk has had my report now for several weeks, but it takes a process to get reports out. But I think I can give you some general comments. The contract for the waste handling at the Niagara Regional 12, which includes, as you all know, it includes Pelham, West Lincoln, and Grimsby's facility. It's an engineered dump, one of the few in the province. And the contract for handling the waste at the site had to be renewed by August 25, and that's been successfully done. And a new contractor has come in. Up to then, we'd had the same contractor since 2012. So it's a 5-year contract with a 2-year renewal. And it was very successfully negotiated. What's amazing about the site is we've had a reduction in tonnage by about 16% on average per year since 2014. So the other amazing thing about this site is the reuse run by the Salvation Army, which is at the entrance of the site. We're able to divert 40 to 50 tons of reusable stuff that people bring to the dump before it gets into the dump, which is amazing. There's no other dump or waste site that has that kind of diversion rate or that kind of facility. So there will be a report, detailed report coming as soon as I can give the okay from the region to the clerk, and it'll be issued. It'll give you some great insight. We've got facts and figures that I think are really important. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor, and I look forward to that report because it is amazing that when we pull things out from not having to go into the landfill, not dumpster, landfill. It's amazing. It's so great because we extend the lifetime of that site so we don't have to go out and find another site to replace it. Last time I heard, with the recycling had extended it by at least 30 years. It's crazy.
That's correct.
Yeah, so I look forward to your report, and if you want, I will give the clerk's office at the region a little nudge.
I keep emailing the secretary to try and get it processed. But there is a process, and they only meet once a month, and
Yes.
I understand it takes a while at the region.
Okay. We look forward to that, Counselor. Any other questions on any consent agendas? Not seeing any?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mayor. The last category was advisory committee minutes. I don't know if you want to formally call for those.
Okay, and any comments, questions on the advisory minutes? Not seeing any. To the clerk.
Excellent, thank you. Therefore, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Eckert. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the November 6, 2024 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved, save and accept item 9.4.1. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate, questions? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 10, and item 9.4.1 has been lifted for separate consideration. To you, Mr. Mayor, the associated resolution with that was be it resolved that council receive the correspondence from the Good Roads Association regarding the establishment of an Ontario Rural Roads Safety Program for information. To you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor.
Councilor Olson, you hold the item. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's no doubt that road safety is an issue in the community and in all the communities in Ontario, especially the rural areas. I pulled this because I think there's a better way of going about this. And I think we have a strategic alliance with the ROMA, which is Rural Ontario Municipal Association. I think they're a more effective people to put this together. I think they did a great job on the broadband. They managed that, and the minister that was responsible for that is also the minister would be responsible for this. I'm not. I guess we're going to accept this, but I would prefer to see something, some similar type of a letter, perhaps going to Roma rather than to Good Roads, because it's. They don't have the same kind of a focus, and they don't think they have the same kind of depth as far as relationships with the government. They're kind of a one-dimensional thing. So if we accept this, are we going to send a letter off, or is that just accepting it for information? Is that what this is? I'm not sure exactly what that would be.
And I turn to our CAO, Mr. Cribbs.
In absence of a council motion to the contrary, all that's going to happen is you receive this and there'll be no further action taken. It takes a positive motion passed by a majority of you for there to be corporate community support for the initiative indicated in the letter. Based on that, I think Councillor Olson would bring no motion and do nothing, would get his goal, would accomplish his goal. And for everyone else, if you feel the contrary, you need to bring a positive motion. If not, we'll simply receive it and there'll be nothing further.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry to take up time with that, then I'll leave it as it is. Thank you.
Okay. Well, now that you brought this item up, is there any council member that wants to delve deeper into this item, or are we willing to go just with the usual? And I guess we're ready to go just with the usual resolution. Councillor Wink?
So I agree with Councillor Olson's comments about Roma, but supporting the good roads and this motion is not going to, it's going to move things along, I think. The unfortunate part is, and Chief is well aware of the number of rural accidents that happen and the number of fatalities and serious accidents, that anything that we can do to help support reduction of those numbers, I think is welcome. So I would like to put a motion forward to accept this letter in support of the motion that Good Roads put forward.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Is there a seconder? I see Counselor Nesnick is seconding. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would you like me to read that into the record, or are you satisfied with how it was laid out in their letter?
I'm satisfied with
Okay.
how they laid out the motion.
Okay, excellent. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, you know what, just so that everyone present knows the motion, yeah, go ahead and read it, please.
Yeah, certainly. So to receive the correspondence for information, and that council endorse and support the implementation of the Rural Road Safety Program that Good Roads has committed to lead. And as the resolution reads in their request letter, whereas official statistics from the Government of Ontario confirm that rural roads are inherently more dangerous than other roads. And whereas despite having only 17% of the population, 55% of the road fatalities occur on rural roads. And whereas rural, northern, and remote municipalities are fiscally strained by maintaining extensive road networks on smaller tax base. And whereas preventing crashes reduces the burden on Ontario's already strained rural strained healthcare system. And whereas roadway collisions and associated lawsuits are significant factors in runaway municipal insurance premiums, preventing crashes can be a significant impact on improving municipal risk profiles. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Pelham requests that the Government of Ontario take action to implement the Rural Road Safety Program that the Good Roads has committed to lead. It will allow Ontario's rural municipalities to make the critical investments needed to reduce the high number of people being killed and seriously injured in Ontario's rural roads. And that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Doug Ford, the Minister of Transportation, as well as the Minister of Infrastructure, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Rural Affairs, Associate Minister for Emergency Preparedness and Response, as well as the Minister of Health. And further, that this resolution be circulated to all municipalities in Ontario requesting their support. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Welcome.
Councilor Nesnick, you seconded the motion. Any further comments?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so being on the receiving end of several calls with regards to citizens being concerned about speeding and unsafe road conditions and that sort of thing, I would like to support this. I was sort of surprised that you wanted, I don't know what Roma is doing currently. Maybe you're more on top of that than I am, but certainly I think this is a specialty from the Good Roads Association that I think would be a good motion for the province of Ontario to be aware of, and it might be a more focused presentation to them coming from Good Roads. So I can support the motion that we do indeed move this forward as Councillor Wink suggested.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Councilor Wink. Any further comments being the mover?
No, I think my previous comments were sufficient and the motion speaks for itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On discussion on the motion, Councilor Olson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of amendments, and I think they may be friendly amendments. The Minister of Infrastructure, her name is Kinga, not King, in the first place. The second place, the Rob Flack, the minister he's Minister of Agriculture of Food and Agribusiness, not Agriculture. And I don't know why the name of our MP and Minister Sam Oosterhoff is missed there, because we're sending it to his boss and his colleagues on cabinet, and I think we should have that in there. And I would propose them as friendly amendments if that's possible. And also there's also a repetition in the word strained under, whereas preventing crashes reduces the burden on Ontario's already strained, rural strained healthcare system. One of those strained items probably should be removed.
Okay, that's it?
That's my amendment.
Okay, thank you. I go to the mover. Councilor Wink, are you, can you consider these friendly amendments, the spelling and what have we?
I'm all about spelling, so that's fine.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nesnick as a seconder. That's good. Okay, thank you. Any further debate, questions on this motion going forward?
Huh?
Councilor Kerr.
Yeah, I was just reading through. I guess it's the motion is to give to Good Roads the lead on a 5-year, $183 million program specifically, I guess is part of the question I have, when in fact there may be a number, as happens with all ministries, there's always competing interests for the same pot of money. And there be, I'm just, as Councillor Olson brought up, I'm unaware whether, is there anyone else other than Good Roads that are lobbying towards the Ministry of Transportation about road safety? That's just a question I have.
To the CAO, please.
For clarity, AMO is 443 of 444 municipalities in Ontario. It's only Toronto that isn't involved. ROMA, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, is a subset of AMO, so ROMA is us. And Good Roads is a subset of AMO, so Good Roads is us. Historically, over the arc of my career, certainly, Good Roads has happened at the same time as Roma and been split asunder and been married back again and split asunder again. They're like a couple that isn't sure if they love or hate each other. But there's the argument being that the rural highways are integral to talking about the municipal experience in rural Ontario, or do you just focus on transportation issues? And this goes back and forth and back and forth. But in either event, they are us. So, and they, Good Roads, as it's currently construed, only looks at roads and has been hived off from Roma at this point in time. Regardless, they exist because we send them a bit of money every year as one of the 443 municipalities that does participate. If, assuming they're successful in this undertaking, they will become the clearinghouse, much like they are, AMO is for a number of grants we participate in or apply to. And so, although it's a subsidiary, if you will, it is still AMO and it is still us, and we are essentially applying to ourselves, albeit this would be funds only available to rural municipalities and only for rural highways. So although I understand why both Councillor Olson and Councillor Kerr have, you can make some very valid arguments about which part of AMO should do this, and at the end of the day, they've got this far. So if they're on the cusp of getting a significant pot of money to which we would have access, but much larger centers would not, I think that part is a good thing. And the rest of it, although I could privately agree with you at this point, the ship has sailed far enough that it's, I think, moot. So we're very happy to, understanding that we just recreate the letter that we received. We ourselves will not intentionally send something along with spelling errors, and there's no universe where we wouldn't reach out to Sam Wisterhoff on this. So we take that, whether it's friendly amended or direction, we will comply, certainly, in either event. It's how they've set it up, so here we are. I think we're kind of like 11th hour, and we just want to indicate support because we'd love that to be a pool of money because we would like to work on our rural roads, of course.
Councillor?
Yes, thank you. I just, the only reason I bring it up is that having been inside the bureaucracy and recognizing that generally they want, at the upper levels, a single voice coming to them. Sometimes you have one group saying this, and that was why I'm asking the clarification. You have a group saying this, then you have another group coming in, another group coming in. I've dealt with organizations where all of a sudden they say, look, we don't want to talk to 3 or 4 different people. We want to talk to one person. So I'm just hoping that this, from the sounds of it, it sounds like it's going through a single route. So I'm fine in supporting it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? So, Madam Clerk, we have to vote on the amendments first, do we? Or, no, the friendly amendments. Go ahead, clarify that.
The friendly amendments don't require a vote. You can vote on the motion.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no other questions or comments, I'll call the vote. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 11, resolution to move in camera. I have a motion put forth by Deputy Mayor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following. Section B, personal matters but an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Section F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, being one item, cannabis. To Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All those willing to go and all those in favor? Yes. Okay, thank you. And perhaps before we discuss, we'll take 5 or 10 minutes for a biological.